changed requirements of a client can be addressed very easily. So that's why we call it as flexible in requirements. In one loop, you are going to find out a solution to all of the problems of the other types of SDLC model. Development as well as the testing as well as collection of details from the customer must take place parallelly. Suppose if the project to be developed by the company is very large, then they will go for spiral model. Hello everyone, it is Dr. Ravi Kumar YB, Department of Computer Science, Vidhyaashram, First Grade College, MYSURU, the Temple of Excellence. In today's class, let me discuss about the spiral model, which is already discussed in the previous session. In continuation of that, why spiral model is called a meta model. What is the meaning of a meta model? That means the description, the details of the spiral model is going to be explained. Properties of an image, properties of a document is called as a metadata. So the spiral model is called as a meta model that gives the properties of the spiral model information. So if that is the case, let me take you into the details of the spiral model. Why spiral model is called as a meta model? The reason for that is it subsumes all other SDLC models. Subsumes means it is a combination of all other type of SDLC model, whether it is a waterfall model or an iterative model or an incremental model or a V model. It is a combination. It subsumes all other types of SDLC model. For example, a single loop of spiral model actually represents the iterative waterfall model. That means it is an indication of an iterative waterfall model. Iterative model is different. Waterfall model is different. That is, the classical waterfall model is different. We have a combination of all these things. That's why we call it as a meta model, a detailed model. If that is the case, the spiral model incorporates the stepwise approach of the classical waterfall model. As I have told you that it is a classical waterfall model, it is a stepwise approach of the classical waterfall model. That means a part of the waterfall model comes into the spiral model in one loop. That means in one loop, you are going to find out a solution to all of the problems of the other types of SDLC model. Then, spiral model uses the approach of the prototyping model by building the prototype at the start of each phase as a risk handling. That means each phase is considered as a risk handling model. Also, the spiral model can be considered as supporting the evolutionary model, evolutionary approach. That means it also supports the evolutionary approach. That means the iterations along the spiral can be considered as evolutionary levels through which the complete system is built. Evolutionary model is also called as an iterative model. Iterative model. So if that is the case, this is a combination of all these types of model. That means the spiral model subsumes, or spiral model is a combination of different types of SDLC model. So what is the meaning of risk handling? Let me tell you that. The projects with many unknown risks that occur as the development proceeds, in that case, spiral model is the best development model to follow that due to the risk analysis and risk handling at every phase. There are 4 phases in this. 4 phases in the spiral model. Each of the phases are responsible for handling risks as the development proceeds. Hence, the industry prefers spiral model in comparison with other SDLC models. As the development proceeds, some risks and challenges appears. Those risks and challenges are addressed with the help of a spiral model at each and every phase of a spiral model. Hence, it is called as an industry preferable model for the development purpose. Or else I will call this as, in comparison with other SDLC models, spiral model is best preferred in industry. If that is the case, which is the second advantage? What is the next advantage? Good for large projects. Suppose if the project to be developed by the company is very large, then they will go for spiral model because of the complexity of the project involved in this. Then flexibility in requirements. That means changing the requirements of a client can be incorporated very easily and accurately using this model. That means using this spiral model, we can incorporate changes easily and works more accurately than other SDLC models. So that's why it is always recommended. That means it is flexible enough to change the requirements, and the requirements of the changed requirements of a client can be addressed very easily. So that's why we call it as flexible in requirements, and it is good for large projects which are having complexity more in number. Then, which is the next advantage? Customer satisfaction. We know that we are addressing many of the challenges of a client very easily because it is flexible enough and it is suitable for large projects in industry. So what is the point of customer satisfaction? Yes, of course, whenever the customer seeks any changes in the existing development of a software, that means the development of the product at early phase of the software development, and thus they habituated with the system by using it before completion of the total project. That means before the delivery of complete software product, the customer experiences the customer experiences the use of software product. Thus, the customer gets satisfied. With the spiral model. That is the thing you need to understand here. If that is the case, what is the main disadvantage of spiral model? The first one is it is complex. Even though it is used for large projects, because of the complexity involved in the project, we prefer the spiral model. But what is the disadvantage of using that? It is much more complex than other SDLC models because each of the loops must be carefully addressed. While handling the risks, each and every phase of the spiral model must be addressed very carefully. Then second one, expensive. That means both development as well as the testing as well as collection of details from the customer must take place parallelly. There is no sequential. So it is very expensive in terms of budget, time, and all those things. So that's why we call it as more expensive. So these more expensive projects are not suitable for small projects. Because of small projects, the budget is very low. However, we have to spend more time and budget on it. That is the reason it is very expensive. The third, too much dependability on risks analysis. That means the successful completion of the project is very much dependent on risk analysis. Without very high experienced experts, it is going to be failure to develop a project using this model. Without any expert analysis, it is very difficult to assess. Then difficulty in time management. As the number of phases are unknown at the start of the project, so the time estimation is very difficult. That means it is very difficult to predict the time required to complete the entire software project. It is very difficult to predict the time needed to complete the entire software product at the starting phase or at the beginning phase. So it is unpredictable at the beginning. What is the time needed to complete the entire software product? Because each and every loop must proceed according to the requirements of a client. Because if there is any changes to be incorporated, that must be incorporated at the same phase of the spiral model. So it is very difficult to estimate the time needed to complete the entire product development process. So that is one of the disadvantages of this spiral model. So with this, I am going to conclude this session. Thank you very much. Thank you one and all.